I was born and raised in South Dakota. It truly is God's country here, with sweeping plains, mountains, and natural beauty that makes you think that you are in heaven. My log cabin in the hills has been here since the settlers tried to conquer this land. Rows of pine trees protect the small home from unwanted eyes. Their thick brown trunks keep me safe from the outside world. Down the bottom of the valley is a silver stream that weaves in and out of the green grass. As the days become warmer, I'd find myself sitting at the river, resting my weary feet in the cold waters. Being this close to nature constantly refreshed my spirit. This was truly paradise. But lately, my paradise has not been so idyllic. It started a few days ago. I was sitting out on my porch, rocking back and forth on my old wooden rocking chair. Its old, worn wood whispered to me each time that it rolled backwards against the old pine floor. It was springtime. The afternoons were mild, but the nights brought a bitter coldness. The golden rays were seeping through the pine trees. Their light lazily rested on the ground, signaling that it was almost time to go and prepare the fire to battle against the oncoming cold. The moon was rising in the distance. It was full. It radiated a bright silver light, and it looked like it was melting against the orange sky. The birds' usual singing suddenly fell silent, and for the first time in many years, my ears began to prick up. There was no sound, nothing, just dead silence. My eyes were drawn to a tree in the distance. It was near the bottom of the stream. I didn't know why I looked at this tree. A screech started to wail in the distance. Its pitch rose until it was ear-shattering. The sound ripped through the valley in almost an instant. The tree began to move violently as several birds shot straight up in the air. It looked like they had made it several feet in the air before their wings stopped moving, and they plummeted back to the earth. Their movement was not graceful. They fell like stones until they impacted the ground, no longer moving. In a flash, I was out of the rocking chair and through the front door. My hand reached down and picked up my hunting rifle from behind the door. The coldness of the wooden stock didn't bring me any comfort. I could only feel a sense of dread that was building up inside me. Spinning around, I was back on my porch. The rifle moved up to my eye in a fluid movement. I glanced down the scope. The area in the tree exploded into my vision. In a quick sweeping motion, I moved the rifle from left to right, looking for what had caused the scream. There was nothing. I was greeted by several birds lying on the valley floor. Their feathers looked wet and stuck together, and their small eyes seemed to be staring in my direction, almost like they were full of pity and sorrow. Lowering the scope, I stood there. I knew in my heart something was coming. Slipping my finger off the trigger, I returned inside and closed the door, sliding the bolt in place and lowering a wooden plank into the mounts behind the frame, securing the door, ensuring no one would get inside. Maybe I was paranoid, but I couldn't eliminate that uneasy feeling. I started my nightly routine of building the fire, cooking dinner, and finally laying down in bed and pulling out a well-worn book. Staring at its yellow-stained pages, the black markings were meaningless today. That scream was still haunting me. Bang, bang, bang. The noise startled me, causing me to jump off the bed. I crept towards the window next to the door. Each step was taken with apprehension and a sense of dread. The dark panes of glass were mere feet from me, and they seemed to hide the depths of hell from behind them. Cursing my stupidity, I knew it was an irrational fear, and that was exactly what it was, irrational. Cupping my hand against my eye, I pressed it softly against the cold window. The heat from my hand felt like it was being drained from my skin, disappearing like water into a funnel. The dark of the night was almost as cold as the glass. I strained my eyes peering out, but there was no one there, except a sense of eerie and impending doom. Who the hell had knocked on my door? It felt like it was going to explode off its hinges. Looking down towards the floor, I noticed my rifle was resting lightly against the wall. I pondered if I should sleep with it next to my bed tonight, but the knot in my stomach told me that wouldn't be a good idea, and that leaving it close to the door would be safer. Craning my head to the side, I held my breath and listened, but there was no sound. It was like the afternoon. Then it hit me. I couldn't even hear the insects that usually serenaded the night. It was deathly silent. The silence was unnatural, and I could hear my heart beating loudly in my ears. And the sound of blood rushing with each pulse increased my anxiety. With each thunderous explosion, my ribs started to hurt. My heart was trying to burst out of my chest. I ran my fingers over my chest, trying to calm myself. I crept backwards, my eyes locked onto the window. I couldn't take my eyes off it. Each step was in slow motion. An ocean of space existed at that moment between me and my bed. When I returned back to my bed, rest didn't come quickly. It was not restful when sleep did come, and my dreams were haunted. Far above the forest below, I could see my small log cabin. Pale grey smoke drifted into the sky, tinged with a soft crimson as it twisted and contorted like some sort of mythic dragon, seeking a new home away from danger. I could feel my spirit being dragged towards the stream. An unseen tether pulled me closer and closer. Danger. Don't go there. Don't go to the stream. My mind begged me, but the closer that I came to the towering pine trees, the more I could make out the figures below. They were small. They looked almost like children, but the sense of malice and hatred coming from them seeped into my body. I could sense exactly what they wanted. What were they? One of the figures looked up. Her small eyes pierced my entire being. They were black. No white could be seen in the child's eyes. Her face was that of a young child. She had to be no older than 6 or 7 years old. Her face was pale white. It reminded me of the finest porcelain. Dark brown hair fell over her shoulders, and a small, hawk-like nose curved downwards towards her thin lips. But those eyes, they were attempting to drain the life from me. Her lips moved in a silent prayer, and even from the distance, I knew exactly what she was saying to me. Let us in. Light exploded into my eyes as I sat up in bed. A silent scream was trying to escape my lungs. I could still feel her lips pressed against my ear. Let us in, or else. Sweat covered my body in a fine, slimy sheen. I could feel the sheets under my body. They were soaked. A drop of sweat crawled into my eye, making it sting, but the pain was barely noticeable. That day, I carried my rifle with me wherever I went. If I wasn't holding it, it was within my reach. My sleep was haunted for the next few nights, and that girl always came to see me. It was always the same nightmare, and it would always end with me waking up, with the little girl's words ringing in my ears. Let us in, or else. But tonight would be different. This was the night that it all changed. Fear gripped me tightly. No matter how I tried, I could not bring myself to go to sleep. I couldn't dream of that little girl again. My rifle was my companion. It rested next to me on my bed. My hand was laying on top of it. I could feel the texture of the wood grain and the lacquer as my fingers caressed it. Tap, tap, tap. Came a rattling from the window next to the door. I could barely hear the tapping. I thought it might have been my imagination. Sliding off the bed, my feet touched the cold wooden floor. I moved quietly as I could muster. My feet never left the floor. They glided across the rough surface. My rifle was trained at the window. I had a bullet already in the chamber. A voice came out of the darkness and caused my body to freeze. No muscle would respond. Fear rooted me to the ground. Imaginary shackles surrounded my body, holding me tightly. Let us in, the voice repeated in a whisper that danced in the darkness. Tremors started at my feet and finally wrecked my entire body in mere moments. No matter how hard I tried to will myself to stop, my body was just shutting down as the voice became louder. Let us in. We are waiting, the voice demanded. Warmth started to flow down my leg. The voice scratched at my very soul. I could feel it wanting to steal me into the night. The warmth and coldness dribbled down onto the floor and pulled at my feet. Let us in, or else we will let ourselves in, the childish voice said. It was edged with impatience. Somehow a small voice crawled out of my mouth and I managed to croak, Go away. A small white bony finger, which looked small and gaunt, started to tap on the glass. The soft tapping now sounded like a shot from a gun each time it struck the glass. How wasn't it breaking? Each tap became louder and louder. I was paralyzed and my eyes could not look away from that finger. Just as I feared that the glass would shatter, the finger stopped and slowly moved away. Let us in now, the voice screamed. A small face appeared at the window. Its eyes were black. Orbs of obsidian gazed at me. They were born from the abyss. It was the face of the little girl from my dreams. Her ashen lips pressed against the glass, and a small black tongue flicked out. I'm scared, mister. Please let us in. It's cold outside, and I am afraid. Something inside me could tell that there was no emotion in the girl's voice. I could feel the weight of the rifle in my hands. I managed to bring it upwards. It felt like I could barely lift it, but I managed to aim it at the windows. What do you want from me? I screamed at the girl. The girl's head twisted sharply. Her eyes seemed to glow darker than before. Her response shattered my hope. We want to eat your soul. Now, let us in, she said with a calmness that ensured I was doomed. The glass of the window shattered outwards and long slivers flew towards the forest as a bullet ripped through it. I didn't even feel my fingers squeeze the trigger, but I could see the smoke rising from the barrel as the shell clattered against the floor. She was gone before the bullet hit the window. I'd missed. Laughter surrounded the cabin, and an unholy chorus rang out as they started mocking me. Your soul, your soul, your soul, the army of demons chanted. I don't know how long I was lying on the floor. My knees were buried in my chest, my hands covering my ears, rocking back and forth as I sobbed uncontrollably. Finally, after a few hours, the voices started to fade into the distance. But the little girl left me with one final warning. We are hungry, and we will have our meal. Her words were chilling, and I knew she would keep her promise if I didn't escape. Maybe it was safe, I thought. I needed to get out of here. Pushing myself off the floor, I struggled to stand. It was like the sky was trying to push me back down. Beside the door hung several keys. Amongst them, one of them was my car keys. Hurriedly, I sprang towards them, ripping them off the wall. Slamming the bolt open, I leapt through the door. It was still dark. The sun was still a few hours from rising. The moon was high enough to illuminate my path to my old pickup truck. With every step, the ground crunched as my feet shattered the dry leaves under them. Each time they broke, the sound reverberated off the trees, amplifying the sound into a loud boom. My hands were shaking as I reached for the pickup's door. Easing myself into the old worn seats, the leather had been faded and cracked from many years of hard driving. The key slid into the ignition, and with a flick of my wrist, the engine roared into life. Slamming the car into gear, I dropped the clutch, causing the wheels to spin on the dirt driveway. I didn't want to spend another moment there, and I knew I would never see my home again. I could never return. The winding roads twisted as I pushed my foot hard down onto the floor. I needed to put as much distance between the children and myself. I couldn't relax even for a moment until the sun was up. The wheel twisted hard under my hands as I spun it to the left. The bend was sharp, and I couldn't afford to stop. My headlights on the road illuminated a little girl. She was just standing there in the middle of the road. Her arm was outstretched, and she was pointing directly at me. I was going too fast, I couldn't stop. Out of misguided reflexes, I grabbed the wheel and I spun it sharply in the opposite direction. The wheel squealed at the rude interruption. Before I knew it, the road had disappeared into the night, and my car had left the road. My pickup departed the ground and went over the edge of the embankment. I could hear the branches hitting the windows, and I could feel the glass shattering as the pickup started to flip several times. Each time the pickup flipped, it sounded like an explosion going off. The shock waves hit me several times a second. Thankfully, a tree stopped the pickup's mad dash down the hill. The metal body twisted around the tree in some kind of sickening embrace. As I sat there motionless in the driver's seat, I could feel that my bones were shattered and would no longer move. Flames wanted to escape my lungs. I could feel them simmering in pain, and there was a faint feeling of warmth dribbling from the corner of my mouth. I could feel it pulling on my chest. Funnily enough, I was starting to feel icy fingers running up and down my spine. The coldness was radiating throughout my entire being. Somehow, I'd managed to lift my head. The effort taxed most of my remaining strength, and it moved in a jerky motion. A pair of pale legs were standing on the hood of my car. I was confused. How did a little girl get down here so quick? Her black eyes stared at me lovingly. It seemed like she wanted something, but in my confusion, I couldn't think anymore. My eyes feel so heavy. I don't know if I can keep them open much longer. Maybe I should rest for a bit. The cold feels nice. As my eyes failed me, I was sure I heard the little girl say, "You should have let us in." Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's lullaby. If you like my content, please like, comment, and subscribe. And remember, dear viewer, keep watching for what's in the dark.